Welcome back to the grind for another Abyss guide from my Carina's sChallengers Abyss Path 3 guide playlist, and this is one of the easier fights on the path against the champion, and Diablo works well for this fight, and Longshot also works well. Those are the two I would say most common mystics that you would bring, and you probably want at least one of them for the path. Now, for this fight, you still can face the unstoppable buffs triggering, but if you have Essence of Null active, you can use your special attacks to trigger Philosopher's Mix. As you can see here, we trigger an unstoppable, but then we throw a special one and immediately nullify the unstoppable buff. So you can control the buffs very well that way, and you actually want buffs to trigger so that you can nullify them for power if you have Mystic Dispersion, and for this run I had 5 out of 5 Mystic Dispersion. Now at first I was just throwing special ones and then immediately dashing back to interrupt that charging so I could just get more charges for my poison potency, and then we're going to build up to a special 3. Now Longshot works well for this fight as well. You do get the bonus damage from nullifying the buffs, and you can chain some heavies on in the corner if you can push him into the corner, and you can counter his heavy attacks and special attacks with your own heavy attacks. And that's gonna, be the ideal way to deal as much damage as possible. And Diablo, I feel like, is just a simpler and easier champion to use. Maybe for this fight, maybe for most fights, but there are definitely certain fights on the path that Longshot would be better for. But if you can't bring both, I recommend Diablo. You can check out my overall guide for an explanation on that. So now we've thrown off our special 3, and now we just want to keep refreshing and pausing those poisons as long as possible. And I probably could have done it more optimally in this run than I ended up doing, but we want to try to refresh them a few times at first if possible, but you always want to try to pause them whenever you get the chance. So here it probably would have been better to throw the special 1 to pause them so that I don't lose so much time ticking down, because if we don't quite get up to a special 2 in time, we either lose them or we end up pausing them with very little time left, and then it makes it really difficult to refresh them again. So there, very last second, we refreshed it through the block. Thankfully it is unblockable, so you can throw it into the block to refresh them. And now we're building up again, and I feel like it would be ideal to do a pause as soon as you could. And here we go. Now we're pausing, but unfortunately, there's no time. There's very little time left on it, which means we're going to have a hard time building up the power we need to pause it again. And unfortunately, we do end up losing the poisons pretty early on. And there you see we lost them. So that's quite unfortunate that we already lost our poisons. But you're going to see that if you do play it right, you could solo this fight. We're going to skip ahead to save some time. You want to try to build up the poisons as much as you can with heavy attacks and using your special 1s to pause them so you can keep building them up, and using your special 2 to refresh them and then pause them again to keep building them up. But we're doing pretty good, and I think we're going to skip ahead a little bit here again as well. We ended up losing some of the poisons, but now we're just going to keep going to heavy spamming and pausing and refreshing. So here you can see we're about done with our charges. I wanted to show the end of the fight so you can see how far we got. It wasn't the most optimal fight. Again, it's a 5-star Diablo, but here you can see we did pretty good. Got over 80% in that fight. So definitely one of the easier ones, definitely soloable, but I hope it was nice to see this video. Good luck, and I hope to see you in the next video.